today he's a real estate agent, but in his past he was an advertiser, years advertiser.
Good morning. Keep worried about these wires. I don't like being wired up. But in the event, how many of you kids are students are actually studying advertising? Okay, not surprised. Well, I didn't know there's farm and soil, could be a lot of things. But in any event, I'll quickly introduce myself. I have 1 hour. I'll try to make it shorter than 1 hour, so hopefully there'll be some questions. You're welcome to jump in and interrupt me at any time, and it's more fun that way. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I was born in 1940. Do some quick math, I'm 73 and a half years old. I graduated Mumford High School in Detroit and came to, went to Wayne State University where I did my master's in English and education. And my parents were in the retail floor covering business, which has a great to do with the story I'm going to tell. After I graduated Wayne State University, I took a teaching job in Athens, Greece, where I taught English as a second language for 3 years, and then returned back to Lansing, Michigan to quit the academia and went into a floor covering business that I learned from my dad. My dad was a partner in a business which is also part of the story this morning, New York Carpet World. I think some of you, by your faces, probably don't remember that entity. They had 2 stores here in Lansing, and that's what brought me to Lansing. But overall, there was 496 stores in the United States. And the growth of that company was also part of the story this morning, which had a lot to do with advertising. In 1965, I came back to East Lansing, where I bought a home, raised my children, who all went to Michigan State. All 3 graduated Michigan State. They flew the coop and got their own profession. But during that period of time when I gave up my teaching career, first of all, I have a brother named Larry, who's 3 years my senior. And he's doing well, he's retired, and lives in Florida. This is really a story about Larry, my brother. He grew up at 18, he was sort of the black sheep of the family. In high school, he decided that the best thing to do was marry a girl who he was dating, who was pregnant. He was 18, she was 17. This was very upsetting to my family, but it was, they were old-fashioned Europeans, and they said, marry the young lady, and that's what you're going to have to do. So at 18 years old, he is not only married, a father, and my dad gave him a position in the company, which was a salesman. And that salesman's job led him to be, later at the age of 21, a manager of a carpet store here in Lansing, Michigan. I'm going to say manager of Carpet World. So far, the story doesn't have much value, but it's going to get there. My brother, being of that personality, I was quite different. I was the analytical, I was the student, I studied hard. Frankly, I didn't have any interest in the retail carpet business. Studying English was great. Wanted to be a school teacher, professor. That came to a conclusion after I had my first child in Athens, Greece. I said, I think I've had enough school for a while, I'll try the retail life. My brother was disenchanted with my father's company and wrote me letters. In those days, we didn't have emails. Quick communication, 2 weeks, the letters would come, and they would be long letters saying, Aaron, why don't you come back to Michigan? You give up the pauper's life of a teacher. You know, Greece was a third world country. Didn't have a lot of value to my brother. He said, you know, we can make it big, blah, blah. It's like, you know, retail is in our blood. Let's go for it. And one day after a 13-hour teaching day, I came back home to my wife and I said, we're going back to the United States. And I guess this is where the story begins. His idea was to start a carpet business that was built around value, promotion, and huge quantity warehouse style. You might call it that today, the big box style. This was contrary to a business that my father had started, which was already in its 40th year of success, which was very traditional. But the concept was, let's just buy carpet cheap, advertise the cheapest prices, and be sort of a warehouse, cash and carry carpet business. That business turned out to be pretty successful, and after a number of years, we had actually 7 locations, over 100 employees, and business seemed to be pretty good. And it was all because of this style of advertising that my brother designed. And that advertising we will talk about momentarily. But it was through my brother, who was 18 at the time, drawing, writing promotional ads and doing some television ads, that was used by the advertising entity, not quite a department, but a backroom little office that they gave my brother, that led New York Carpet to be the largest retail floor covering business in the world, actually, with almost 500 stores and $1 billion in volume. You can imagine we had over $1 million advertising budget for Michigan alone. So we were always on TV, always on the radio, and certainly in the newspaper 4 or 5 times a week. It was not the fact that we advertised, it was the method that we advertised that brought New York Carpet to this lofty height of being the #1 carpet business in the United States. But my brother, again, leaving the company, took his wisdom, his gift, I guess you can call it, and said, let's do it ourselves. I could build even a bigger corporation than New York Carpet. So this is really going to be a little bit of how-to, and for your entertainment, a little story about maybe my family. And it's built around some vignettes. What I did as a teacher, how I became in the carpet business, and then later, and I'll bring you right up to date, after 7 years of the carpet business and having a brother who had his personality was like water and oil, we fought constantly, and as family brothers do, we often had some really serious arguments. And one day I said to my brother, you can have it all. I gave it up. And now I'm unemployed. I'm with child, and my wife's with child, and we're on her 2nd child. We have expenses, a lifestyle. And I came home in the middle of the afternoon and I said to my wife, I just quit this business that brought us back to the United States, and I'm on my own again. And she said, what are you going to do? Well, the thing that was happening that brought us to this point was financial problems. And the financial problems were not only my problems, but they were the economies. Michigan in the mid-'80s was heavily hit with a recession, even though the country wasn't in the recession, Michigan was. And we couldn't pay our bills. And a lot of the other carpet businesses, floor covering businesses, furniture stores, retail business in general, were having a tough time. But because of my dominance in the carpet business and having a relationship with carpet mills and people that finance carpeting, which are called factors in the carpet industry, they would call me and they'd say, Aaron, you know, there's a competitor of yours in M.S.U, Michigan, I'm making that up, that isn't paying us, and I'm afraid he's going to go out of business. Is there anything you could do, help him out, maybe you know him, or help him in the respect that maybe you could take over the business or something as bizarre as that? So I would go to see a vendor, and these people knew me by reputation. So I would say, Mr. Smith from Smith Carpet Tile or whatever in Kalamazoo, I'd say, would you like to sell me your business? I understand you've been around for 20, 30 years with your father's business, but I know you're not doing well. It's no secret. Your creditors have been calling me, telling me that you're in trouble. And I would work out a deal with him. I would put my carpeting, which I had lots of access to, and put it into a store. And I'd run a big ad campaign that would bring people to the store. And we would have what we called a liquidation sale. Basically, I didn't want his business, but I wanted the opportunity to sell carpet using his going out of business as a vehicle contrary to a traditional carpet store. And the sale would last maybe 30, 60, 90 days, sometimes even 6 months. After that sale, I would go to another vendor, and I would do the same thing. And I started repeating this. Pretty soon I was well known in the industry as not Aaron, the traditional carpet man, or certainly not Aaron the professor, but I was Aaron the liquidator. And my brother, who was on the sideline, he was still operating this other carpet business, saw that I was amassing a career, a new career, making money and being successful doing something that was sort of off the wall, buying businesses, selling them, trying to make some money in the mix. That led to my brother doing the same thing. So again, not only do I have a brother out there who I love, but he certainly was challenging me as my competitor. So when there was a business for sale, I would go to that business, albeit where, and there was my brother's car in the parking lot. I said, Larry, what are you doing here? He said, I got here first. Don't worry about it. It's all taken care of. I already bought his business, and I'm going to liquidate it myself. Well, what this is leading to is that I couldn't be, again, in the same business as my brother, so I threw the towel in for probably the 15th time in my life and said to my brother, why don't we just join forces? I have a procedure and got a name for myself out there with the creditors and the banks. Why don't we just go for it and we'll have one big business? And Larry, being very self-centered, very narcissistic, loved to see his name in print, said, why don't we call it Larry the Liquidator? I said, okay, Larry the Liquidator sounded like a handle. So we were both known as Larry the Liquidator. There was Larry, there was Aaron, but as one we were Larry the Liquidator. Larry the Liquidator bought and sold probably 500 businesses in the course of 15 years, which we liquidated and to some extent solved a tremendous amount of bank problems, personal problems for these owners, and for most of the creditors that would have taken serious losses through the vehicle called bankruptcy, we sold these businesses without going through the courts and necessary paperwork of bankruptcy where all people fail, and or I should say all people lose in those bankruptcies. So now we have this business called Larry the Liquidator. Hello. And we then took this business on the road. We went to California, to Georgia, Texas, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. We did stores that were going out of business in New York. So we became a national entity in this business called Larry the Liquidator. In the process of doing all of this, it was a maze of legal problems. Because every time we went to a business, he was already surrounded with legal issues, unpaid taxes, he was behind in his rent, he had his creditors looking for blood out of him, and now we're taking over that business. We're transferring all the assets of that business into Larry the Liquidator's, call it coffee can, and in that process all the creditors look to us to get paid. And of course we weren't going to pay all these creditors, that wasn't our scheme. So what did we do? We had to balance that with finding loopholes in the law and being a professional liquidator and treading on legal issues day after day. We actually had not one but several attorneys that were side by side with us as we traveled around, putting out all the legal fires. The other thing that we discovered, now we're going to get to the essence of this advertising class in the story. what worked for us in some cities didn't work for us in other cities. The recipe was not generic. We couldn't do what we did in New York City that we could do in Fowlerville, Michigan. And the reason for why things worked in some places is not because of how we advertise. It's the mentality of the people that live in a city versus the people that live in rural areas such as Fowlerville. Now, without sounding that I'm a psychologist, and certainly I probably could hold myself high as a psychologist, having talked to so many people who have come to this destitute part of their life, that they're losing their business, and they're saying, oh, what am I going to do? I can't pay my taxes. They're going to take my house away. My firstborn child, I'm going to have to give up the country club. My wife wants to leave me. Those were the scenarios that we dealt with on a day-to-day basis. So we would go to run these ads in New York, which were very costly, very sophisticated, and we couldn't produce enough results to overcome the cost factor of the advertising, the media itself. Whereas we can go to Fowlerville and get a local radio station that does country music, and a sports station on the radio that maybe just does sports for a fraction of the cost, and do a newspaper that comes out weekly, the local paper, run not one little ad, but a full-page double truck ad, as we call them, and which had a lot more interest. And if there was a possibility of a nearby TV station, we would buy some TV time. That was inexpensive relative to what we were going to produce. Now, to make the sale look plausible and look like it was really going to be a bargain hunter's paradise, was the second most important ingredient, was to find a way you could say to the public, buy our carpet, furniture, or widgets, 50, 80, even 90% off. You have to add an element of credibility. Where in the world would someone want to sell something at 70, 80% off? I mean, literally, that's incredible. We would find a way in the message, in all this advertising promotion, that explained how we were able to do that. And I think that added the credibility. Does anybody here know where I'm going with this? If somebody can think of a message that you saw in a newspaper recently that said, we must sell blah, 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 because of some event that caused us to discount everything we own. Has anybody seen any of those ads recently? Well, I happen to have one. This came in the mail. Where's my penny? They can't see it from here. You can kind of carry it around so they can see it, and if anybody wants to touch it, look at it, read it, it's yours. This came to me, and the word on it was, this came from a car dealership. And the car dealership sent this by U.S. mail, it's in my mailbox, along with a key. The key is Scotch taped to it. That key belongs to a door. All I have to do is find the car on his lot that key fit, and the greatest thing in the world is going to happen. They're going to give me a car. And in the process, they're also saying, we're going to liquidate everything out in our inventory. Now, this is just one part of our exposure because it deals with the latent power of words. So now we also have to come up with the excuse of why we're doing this sale. And I'll give you a number of excuses that would sound credible to you. And we also had to use words that were latent. Latent means strike an emotional chord. The word liquidation in itself is laden with emotion. It's a very powerful word in advertising. Because if you look at Webster's definition of liquidation, it means basically sell everything. get rid of everything, liquidate it. And so the ad would be saying, we are in trouble, we need money, we have to sell all of our product at a discount. The word is latent, but other words are even more latent. We would start a lot of our ads with, by order of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court, we are hereby liquidating all the assets, and let's make up a name, Jenny's Furniture, Wallpaper and Paint of Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Where are you from, Jenny?
Oxford.
Where?
Oxford.
Okay. The word U.S. bankruptcy we were allowed to use because we did file, in some cases, for a bankruptcy. Even though we never fulfilled the bankruptcy obligations, it was used in our advertising, and we also had a number. When you file for bankruptcy, you get a number which denotes you have filed the paperwork for a bankruptcy, for a business. Another word would be fire sale. The most interesting sales I've probably ever had is where we would get messages from local newspapers that there was a local fire in a retail store, and we would go and approach that owner, and he'd say, well, I don't have to worry about anything, I'm insured, I have insurance for all my damaged goods. If you had any kind of a fire, the smoke damage or water damage, and we'd say, well, who's your insurance carrier? And I would go to the insurance carrier and I would make them a deal, and I would say, look, what are you going to do with all this merchandise that you've got to buy from this dealer under your insurance plan? So we don't have any source of getting rid of it. I said, well, I'll get rid of it for you. This was a great sale, but the problem was, who wants to buy smoke damaged carpeting, water damaged sofas? You try it once and you'll see what happens. People come from miles all over with trucks and trailers. They say, I want to see that carpeting you have. I could air it out. I could dry it out. I can use it. For $1 a square yard, I can put it in my rental property. And basically, we had to find, I'm giving you a little bit of a message here, the excuse of how to produce these outlandish discounts, which people responded to. So now we have small towns, and I hate to use this because many of us are from small towns, but there's a small town mentality. When we ran a sale, it was like the circus Barnum Bailey came to town. People loved it. It was something to do on a Saturday night. They would toot their horns in the street. Hey, having a big liquidation sale. And they would see these names like Larry the Liquidator. And it was kind of scary, you know, what's going on here? I got to go to Moe's furniture store and see what's going on. So we were an event when we came to these cities. And I mean that in a serious way. We would not only do our sales, but we would bring in acrobats. We would hire from a farmer, we'd get ponies and do all this on the front of these lawns or buildings where there was some grass. And we produced a circus-like effect for all of our sales. In most of my sales, I was able to have at least 1 or 2 clowns just walking around entertaining the kids. So it gave that big, unusual, wow, what's going on here? Those sales were challenged by the local dealers. If I was a furniture store and I had a competitor who was going out of business, and he hired Larry the Liquidator to get rid of his store and solve his problem. And we won't go into that message today because that's a long legal story in itself. But for the most part, those competitors went after us with a vengeance. And all of these small towns, when I say small towns, we're not talking about little tiny towns. We're talking about towns like Lansing, Michigan, Persing, New York City. They all had a relative who was a prosecutor. They all had a relative who was a judge. They all had a brother-in-law who was the best attorney in town. And they would call these people up and they would say, hey, you better stop that Larry the Liquidator thing from coming to town here and advertising what he's doing. He says, that can't be legal and it's destroying my business for months and years afterwards. Get rid of that. Stop that son of a gun. You must stop him in any way you can. I got a lawyer here. I got my lawyer here. And we got pretty good at challenging these complaints. I mean, we really got good. I mean, we were you could write the direct book on how to prevent yourself from staying out of jail, I guess. But the noise that we created legally with injunctions, going back and forth to the prosecutor's office, and having all of our ads scrutinized by the Federal Trade Commission, every single event that we had was challenged to the hilt. Somebody in one of these newspapers picked up what we were doing, and he liked the story of what we were doing. He said, my God, this guy goes all over the United States, flirting with the law, challenging all these people in court, and producing mass sales. What is his secrets? And he wrote an article about that, which later became a book, which later, the book became a Broadway play, which later became a movie. That movie is played often in business schools throughout the United States. It's a story about, well, let's tell you what the name of it is. Using someone else's money. I see you got some laptops there. I don't know if you're on the internet. Just type in the words, Larry the Liquidator.
Other people's money.
Other people's money.
It's played by Danny DeVito.
And I'm going to, with permission, I'm going to have, we'll do it, one of the trailers of that movie. My brother, who does not look like, doesn't act like, and doesn't think like Danny DeVito, is played by Danny DeVito in the story Larry the Liquidator. For your pleasure. Maybe for your pleasure.
Oh, just this is a part when that's Larry the Liquidator. He's trying to convince the stockholders, the employees of this firm, that he didn't do anything bad to them, and they're kind of, you'll see, they're angry.
Yeah, just maybe I could first. The corporation was going bankrupt, and Larry the Liquidator, Danny DeVito, steps in and he wants to get the stockholders' approval of what he was doing. Rather than fight all these wars that I sort of enumerated about the legal aspects of what we did, sort of semi-legal. If it was really challenged, they cause us all kinds of issues legally. And Danny DeVito comes out to defend Larry the Liquidator to the stockholders. Okay.
Amen. And amen. And amen. You have to forgive me, I'm not familiar with the local customs. Where I come from, you always say amen after you hear a prayer. Because that's what you just heard. A prayer. Where I come from, that particular prayer is called the prayer for the dead. You just heard the prayer for the dead, my fellow stockholders, and you didn't say amen. This company is dead. I didn't kill it. Don't blame me. It was dead when I got here. It's too late for prayers. For even if the prayers were answered, and a miracle occurred, and the yen did this, and the dollar did that, and the infrastructure did the other thing, we would still be dead. You know why? Fiber optics. New technologies. obsolescence. We're dead, all right. We're just not broke. And you know the surest way to go broke? Keep getting an increasing share of a shrinking market. Down the tubes. Slow but sure. You know, at one time there must have been dozens of companies making buggy whips. And I'll bet the last company around was the one that made the best goddamn buggy whip you ever saw. Now, how would you have liked to have been a stockholder in that company? You invested in a business, and this business is dead. Let's have the intelligence, let's have the decency to sign the death certificate, collect the insurance, and invest in something with a future. Ah, but we can't, goes the prayer. We can't because we have a responsibility. A responsibility to our employees, to our community. What will happen to them? I got 2 words for that. Who cares? Care about them? Why? They didn't care about you. They sucked you dry. You have no responsibility to them. For the last 10 years, this company bled your money. Did this community ever say, we know times are tough? We'll lower taxes, reduce water and sewer. Check it out. You're paying twice what you did 10 years ago. And our devoted employees, who have taken no increases for the past 3 years, are still making twice what they made 10 years ago. And our stock, 1/6 what it was 10 years ago. Who cares? I'll tell you. Me. I'm not your best friend. I'm your only friend. I don't make anything. I'm making you money. And lest we forget, that's the only reason any of you became stockholders in the first place. You want to make money. You don't care if they manufacture wire and cable, fry chicken, or grow tangerines. You want to make money. I'm the only friend you've got. I'm making you money. Take the money. Invest it somewhere else. Maybe you'll get lucky and it'll be used productively. And if it is, you'll create new jobs and provide a service to the economy. And God forbid, even make a few bucks for yourselves. And if anybody asks, tell them you gave it the plant. And by the way, it pleases me that I'm called Larry the Liquidator. You know why, fellow stockholders? Because at my funeral, you'll leave with a smile on your face and a few bucks in your pocket. Now that's a funeral worth having.
That sort of wrapped it up. A little bit of Hollywood version. That's what we did. We had to go in front of owners who, in most cases, were small businesses. They weren't corporations. The largest corporation we ever did was a 22-store waterbed company, South Carolina. And Robert Hall's, which was a menswear store, it predates all of you, unless you were around in the early 40s, 50s, and 60s. They had 1,200 stores covered for us. It took 16 or 18 states that we went to do. So this obviously was a portrayal of a corporation that was going down the tubes, and the stockholders kept arguing with the stockholders, the vice president or whoever it was in charge, saying, you know, we can make it, we got to just keep waiting it out, blah, blah. And then comes Larry the Liquidator, it's time to give a speech, and his job was to hold their hands and say, hey, look, you're not going to be here in a year from now. You're fiber optics, if you remember the speech. And what we were doing psychologically is that when we went to see someone, a very proud but going down the tube business owner, when he first would introduce himself, he says, yeah, my name is Joe, This was my dad's business and my grandfather's business. Before that, we are 80 years old. And I saw in the parking lot he had a brand new car, a Cadillac, big car. And I went into his office, and his office looked like the President of the United States, big office with all his pictures and his trophies and all the medals he's ever won. All of that was the presence of mind of this proud owner, who at this point was that close to shutting his doors because he couldn't pay his light bills, couldn't pay his employees. And then came in the door, Larry the Liquidator, and I would say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to liquidate this whole place, and here's what I'm going to do for you. During the liquidation, I'm going to give you a job in your own store, and I'll pay you fair wages. And if I make any money, I'll give you a percentage of my profit. And then you can go home and do what you want. And furthermore, if the store is still here and you want to stay in business, you can have all the remaining inventory that's left from the sale, and I'll give you the keys back, and you can go your happy way. I'm done. And what his reaction would be to that? Anger. How could you come into my business and tell me I'm going to go out of business, and tell me that you could do all these things? How in the world could you make these promises anyway? And there was always this element of anger and his pride and all these emotions. And it took that kind of a speech 1,000 times over that we had to give to that person that we were going to work with, to convince him that what we were doing was in his best interest. As I said, there was a legal way of handling this, and what we used to do was called the Bulk Sales Act. If there's any 2B lawyers in here, you can look that up. That was the mainstay of our business. But how we actually filled the parking lots and generated all this business is why you're here today. And we did that with ads. I'm going to play you a Larry the Liquidator ad. Actually, it's 4 of them. These are 30-second spots. Typical radio spots, and these were run, I think, in Chicago. We liquidated many chains of waterbed stores. We had a niche of waterbed stores that were, if you remember, it was a hot business, and then pretty soon it sort of disappeared. It left thousands of waterbed stores going out of business. And we were the sort of the wet guys. We liquidated thousands of these stores. I want you to hear 4 of these sequences of these ads, and then I want your honest opinion. This is actually my brother, Larry the Liquidator. We produce all of our own ads, and you're going to hear one. 4 of them. Yeah, did I unplug myself? Okay. Remember, you're going to have to critique this, okay? So listen carefully.
Only more to go, and they're going fast, going out of business. After nearly 2 decades, this reputable business, a landmark for waterbed furniture with stores throughout Chicagoland, is nearly gone. Within days, it will be gone forever. Gone will be your opportunity to buy from the largest selection of waterbeds, furniture, and accessories. Gone will be your chance to save 50, 60, and up to 70% off all these fabulous products, and to sleep better than you ever have before, and to take your purchase home same day. Gone will be your chance to buy with cash, checks, bank cards, and instant financing from this famous merchant. But wait, we're not completely gone yet. We're still selling like crazy while hunters are saving like crazy at Evening Time's Waterbed's final weekend in Mondeline, Glendale Heights, Lansing, and Elk Grove. This fabulous going out of business liquidation sale is being conducted by nationally known Southeast liquidators who want to remind you that when we're gone, we're gone. And on these final weekdays, we're open till 9, Saturday till midnight, Sunday 11 till 6, and then we'll be gone forever.
Got 2 more.
Spot 2 is to run Saturday only.
Why don't you try this at home? See if you can rattle off a 6-minute ad in 30 seconds. Here you're going to hear one. We call it Machine Gun Larry.
Are they crazy? Staying open all the way till midnight tonight at Evening Time's Waterbeds during their final hours of this great going out of business sale that should end Sunday at 6 p.m. and then we'll be gone forever. While they're selling like crazy, folks are saving like crazy. Crazy last-minute offers on famous maker waterbeds and bedroom furniture are being accepted like crazy. Merchandise is being sold out, loaded on buyers' cars, trucks, and trailers like crazy. As the bewitching hour approaches, we're all going crazy in our desperate effort to give you deals so that you can leave our remaining 4 stores empty, cleaned out to the bare walls by Sunday at 6 p.m. Sure, we're staying open till 12 tonight, opening tomorrow, Sunday, 11 till 6, so that you can save up to 80% on some of the finest sleep products you'll ever find. It's crazy. It's madness. It's the remaining hours of Evening Tide's Waterbeds being brought to you by Southeast Liquidators at the last of these great stores in Mondaline, Glendale Heights, Lansing, and Elk Grove, where everyone's gone crazy, but soon everyone's gone.
I think there's one more. Bear with me.
Spot 3 is to run Sunday only.
The ads had a sequence, Monday, Wednesday.
Today, you should wrap it up. This is it. Goodbye. So long. Nothing this good can last forever. This message from Evening Tide Waterbeds, where history's greatest waterbed and bedroom furniture sale ends tonight at 6 p.m. But with just moments left, there's just enough time to get your deal of a lifetime on a waterbed, bedroom set, mattress, chest, dresser, mirror, nightstand, comforter, lamp, linens, and any item you can use for your sleep comfort at the most incredible discounts ever offered. Name your own price. We'll probably take it because there's no time left. We can't hold the goods any longer. Today, only Sunday, till 6 p.m. only at Evening Tide's Waterbeds today in Mondaline, Elk Grove, Lansing, and Glendale Heights, conducted today by Southeast Liquidators. Today, because this great name of Waterbeds can't last any longer. Today, only because Evening Tide's Waterbeds was forced out of business. Today, because you've had one of the largest, most respected inventories to choose from in the nation, is the only reason that you'll ever have today to save so much. But only until 6 p.m. tonight can this sale last, so hurry, you're almost too late now.
Wow, you can take a breath now. It was something as boraxy and bad as that all sounded, I have to say it was amazing. Because, I don't know if you notice, he never stumbles over a word. And he made not one of these, but maybe 1,000 of these ads. And rarely, if ever, did he ever stumble. And you get all that out. He never had any cards. He'd just get up to the microphone or the camera and say, sale starts at Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And then he'd go on with his pitch, and that was the end of it. And that was our trademark. I want to show you a couple of things. Larry and I actually acquired a waterbed store. This was an article. We had many articles. I didn't save them all. This all happened 30 years ago. But newspapers constantly were writing about us. And here's a picture of Larry and Aaron. In the early 70s, we were in front of one of the liquidated stores that we had. You can show them that. I think there's a date on there too. These are all these, some of the remnants of these ads that were always written about Larry as the liquidator. And I want to just show you something else. That both my brother and myself are pilots, and we had a plane. Actually, we had 2 planes, and we would fly around doing a lot of aerial advertising, which we really were well remembered for. But often people would say, "Oh, you're the guys that are always flying back from Dalton, Georgia with these specials that you just bought out the factory and brought it here to Lansing, Michigan." And we'd get off the airplane and the camera would be rolling. We'd take the samples and we'd throw them on the wing of the airplane. We'd say, "Here's this carpet here is usually $10, $12 a yard. We're going to sell it for $1.98 a square yard," etc. And in the process, one of the things that was done by Michigan State right here, for a Valentine's ad, they asked me to contribute and do one of my ads. And I took this picture. We had 7 volunteers to model. It was a clothing store I was liquidating, and they had bathing suits. So I asked these advertising students, girls, if you can keep these expensive bathing suits if you model for me, and we're going to use that as the part of the ad. And this ad actually had copy written on the top of it Here's the original photograph I'll pass around, and that's me in my airplane. I think that was taken early 80s. So we did have a lot of fun doing this. Yes, sir.
Did you want? I thought you. I just had a comment about the. I guess the thing that you just played us. That was a radio spot, right?
That was a radio spot, and I was going to ask you the question. We ran a promotion, and the promotions were pretty short. I mean, we didn't run these for weeks and months. They were like 30 days. So if we did it for 30 days, what we did, we built it up with radio, mostly radio, where the TV or the radio stations would be promoting during the weeks, and then as we got closer to the tail end, we had a sequence from Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that you only have so many days left, and then Wednesday, time is running out, and then Sunday, you only have hours. And that last one was the Sunday ad. This is giving you how we built up the momentum. How many radio ads do you think our little company would have bought for a typical promotion? How many ads? You know, you're selling advertising. You want you to buy a package of advertising. You don't sell one 30-second spot. So what would you guess a number of radio ads that you would think Larry would
How many y'all ran per day, or just like for that whole, I guess,
Well,
3-day period?
I'll tell you, we ran as many as 50 to 100 a day. So during the course of 30 days, figure it out. TV spots. New York Carpet, by the way, still ranks #1 for having spent the most money. Channel 6, Channel 10. Both those, we ranked #1. We were the largest customers ever to date. That's how much TV we ran. And so, I mean, this is over a long period of time, but newspaper, State Journal, we ranked #1 for the amount of inches of copy that we bought from that newspaper. We didn't only do it in that newspaper, but if we were running ads in the Lansing State Journal, we ran also in the Jackson Patriot and the Grand Rapids papers. Again, we stayed out of Detroit. I can't remember any ads in Detroit. Only because the cost of running a double-page ad, which is both sides, all in black, reverse print, was just so ungodly expensive. What was your actual question?
My actual question was, why didn't did you guys, it wasn't music, like, go on while people used to talk back then, or?
I'm sorry.
Like, how come there wasn't music incorporated into when he was talking?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, we produced every one of these ads. We wrote our own ads. We had our own little camera for making our own TV productions. We never used studio equipment. And the reason for that is that we didn't know anyone on their staff. If you were representing a radio station, you'd go to a client and say, yeah, we'll produce the spots for you. I'll bring them over tomorrow and we'll play them in my cassette and you can pick the ones you want and we'll run them for you. That's how it's usually done. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could do that. There's nobody that can rattle off that kind of message. So we had to do it ourselves. And when it came to newspaper ads, remember these newspapers were hostile also. They were possibly one of the creditors. They knew they were going to lose all their money. And now we had to go to the How Gazette, or whatever it's called down there, and say, we're going to run these going out of business ads for Joe Schmo's furniture store. And the owner of the newspaper would say, hey, who's going out of business now? And I'd say, Joe. He said, well, you know, he owes me a lot of money. I said, yeah, you're never going to see it. He said, well, I don't have to run this ad. I said, yes, you do. All of a sudden, the lawyer comes out. And he says, well, I'm not going to give you any credit. I said, I don't want any credit. It's cash. That's the only way we can do business. And he said, well, who's going to do all this copy and everything else? I said, give me a desk and a pen, piece of paper. I'll lay the whole thing out for you while I'm sitting. He said, how can you do that? I said, let me have a piece of copy paper. I'd sit there, draw all the boxes, put the prices in there. I'd say, look, this box here, get a photograph of a piece of carpeting. This box here, get a photograph of the sofa. And here's all the logos. And whole thing together. I said, I want to see proof on this in a couple of days, and I want the whole thing to be in reverse print. Anybody here know what reverse print is?
Is it black background, right writing?
Basically, when you print, you have a white background and you put white, black printing over it. In reverse print, you take a black background and you print white over it. It's not real, it's ugly to look at because it's very black and it's very dark. And that's what we wanted. This was really producing a funeral. You know, there was nothing happy about it. But these ads had to be black. And this is a very small ad, but it ties into the article that's going around. This is actually done on black paper, and so the printing is embossed on the top of it, and that's what gives it that dark look. Any more questions?
We have time for some more questions.
It's been a pleasure. I hope that you have successful careers in advertising. I don't think any of you want to be in the liquidation side of this, but if you ever did, it's kind of an exciting career I had. Yes?
Over the years, did you and your brother like end up getting along?
Pardon?
Over the years, did you and your brother end up like getting along and like?
Yeah, we mellowed out.
Say the truth.
Pardon?
You want to say the truth. Say the truth.
Say the truth?
Yeah.
I love my brother. He really was my big brother. And I had really a great life. And, I don't know if my wife would agree with that. She is recently deceased, but she always said, Aaron, are we rich or poor today? Now, you know, I have friends who are retired doctors. And they went to school, they went to medical school, and they became a doctor, and they practiced medicine for 40 to 45 years and retired, and that was their life. And there's nothing wrong with that life. It's a beautiful life. I had a different job every day. One day I was in the advertising business, one day I was in the water business, one day I was doing something else. And in the mix of all this, I actually did teach school too. So that was, when people said, what do you really do? I always said, I'm a teacher, and that gave me pride. I just love telling people I was a teacher. Any other questions? Larry lives in Florida, and his personality is, he's been married 4 times. He has wonderful children, despite his chaotic lifestyle. His kids came out gyms, and so we have a very close-knit family, and my brother and I see each other infrequently, especially when the weather's really cold in Michigan, which is a lot. I go to Florida, I stay with my brother, and we have nice conversations. We talk about the good old days. Thank you very much.